Most of them, honey, most of them out that door by 10:30 in the morning crying.
It was the kind of California morning that looked almost too calm to carry bad news. Soft light spilled over the hills of Ojai, a quiet town just north of Los Angeles, and then silence was broken. At 7 a.m., a short statement appeared on Laura Dern's social media feed. My mother, Diane Ladd, passed peacefully this morning, surrounded by love. That single sentence traveled faster than any press release. Within minutes, Reuters, The Guardian, and AP News confirmed it. Three-time Oscar nominee Diane Ladd dies at 89. For 6 decades, she had been the heartbeat behind Hollywood's most human stories, the waitress with fire in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, the haunting mother in Wild at Heart, the tender matriarch in Rambling Rose. And now, that heartbeat was gone. Outside her Ojai home, neighbors gathered quietly with candles. Some carried photos from old movie posters. Others left roses on the gate. They said the house looked peaceful, as if she were still there. This was not a celebrity scandal. It was a passing that felt sacred. A reminder that even legends run out of breath. Just 3 months earlier, Diane had lost her husband of 26 years, Robert Charles Hunter, the former CEO of PepsiCo. Friends said she had spent her final weeks rereading the book she and her daughter co-wrote, Honey, Baby, Mine, a Mother and Daughter Talk Life, Death, Love, and Banana Pudding. It was their shared diary of survival after illness, and now it read like a farewell letter. Laura Dern's voice trembled in an audio clip later released to the press. She taught me how to live. Now, she's teaching me how to say goodbye. As the sun climbed higher over Ojai, news crews began to arrive. Reporters described the atmosphere as hushed, reverent. Hollywood, a town built on lights, suddenly felt darker. And yet, somewhere in that quiet, her spirit lingered the same stubborn light that had refused to fade through heartbreak, sickness, and time itself. Another light in Hollywood had gone out, but its warmth remained. Long before the red carpets, the award shows, and the flashbulbs, Diane Ladd was simply a girl from Meridian, Mississippi, a small southern town where Sundays meant church and every face on the street was familiar. Her real name was Rose Diane Ladner, and her childhood was steeped in the warmth and contradictions of the American South, faith and fire, tenderness and toughness. Her father, Preston Paul Ladner, ran a small oil company. Her mother, Mary Bernadette Anderson, performed in local theater productions and believed that storytelling could save the soul. From her mother, Diane learned that art wasn't about applause, it was about honesty. She once recalled, "When I acted, I wasn't pretending. I was praying." That belief that acting could be a form of worship would guide her for the rest of her life. But in Meridian, dreams were small and ambition was dangerous. People told her, "Girls from here don't end up in Hollywood." So one humid afternoon, with a single suitcase and a one-way bus ticket, Diane left home for New York City. The city was cruel, but she was tougher. She waited tables, shared a one-room apartment, and studied acting at the Actors Studio, alongside young hopefuls named Al Pacino, Ellen Burstyn, and Robert De Niro. Those years forged her. The deep Mississippi drawl that others mocked became her signature. The discipline of the Actors Studio became her armor. She said later, "Hollywood gave me lights, but the South gave me soul." That soul, raw, unfiltered, unafraid, would carry her through 6 decades of success, heartbreak, and rebirth. And it would make her one of the few performers who could make audiences cry not with beauty, but with truth. By the time the 1,970 seconds arrived, Diane Ladd had lived through the kind of struggle most actors don't survive. She had done television walk-ons, low-budget films, and stage plays that barely paid the rent. But she never lost faith in her craft. She was waiting for the role that would prove why she was born to act. That role came in 1974, when a young Martin Scorsese cast her in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. The story followed a widow trying to rebuild her life with her son after tragedy, and Diane was chosen to play Flo Castleberry, a sharp-tongued waitress who spoke with more truth than manners. The moment she stepped on screen, something shifted. Flo wasn't elegant or fragile. She was alive, fierce, funny, a survivor. Diane filled every line with the rhythm of the South and the ache of real women who work, love, and lose without ever giving up. Critics called her a revelation of Southern strength. The role earned her the BAFTA Award and her first Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. For Diane, the recognition was sweet, but not enough to change her principles. When CBS turned Alice into a sitcom in 1976, she agreed to reprise the role. Yet after just one season, she quit. "They wanted Flo to be funny," she said. "I wanted her to be real." That choice cost her money, fame, and exposure. But it gave her something better: integrity. Directors noticed. So did her peers. Through the rest of the decade, she appeared in Roman Polanski's Chinatown and other films that cemented her as a character actress of unusual gravity. She wasn't a conventional star. She didn't chase glamour or play to the camera. She chased truth, and the camera followed her. Her fellow actors began to call her the Southern Hurricane. Scorsese once remarked, "Diane doesn't act, she becomes." By the end of the 1,970 seconds, the girl from Mississippi who once cleaned tables in New York had become one of the most respected actresses in Hollywood. She had found her place not in gossip columns or photo spreads, but in the hearts of those who still believed acting could be art. If the 70s built her name, the 90s would turn Diane Ladd into legend. At 55, when most actresses were being quietly written out of Hollywood, she found herself cast by one of cinema's great provocateurs, David Lynch. The film was wild at heart, 1990, a fever dream about love and destruction, starring Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern, Diane's own daughter. Lynch wanted chaos, danger, and emotion so raw it hurt to watch. He told Diane, "Don't act, bleed." And she did. As Marietta Fortune, an unhinged Southern mother who would rather destroy her child than lose her, Diane turned herself inside out. In one unforgettable scene, she smeared red lipstick across her face, like blood, half woman, half ghost, an image that would burn into the memory of filmgoers for decades. The performance earned her her second Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Critics wrote that she was terrifying and tender all at once, the perfect contradiction of love gone rotten. Lynch called her a spirit that can make nightmares feel human. Only a year later, she would step in front of the camera again with her daughter, but this time in a story of love, not madness. In 1991's Rambling Rose, Diane played a compassionate matriarch, while Laura portrayed a free-spirited girl coming of age in the Depression-era South. The result was cinematic alchemy. Mother and daughter lit up the screen with a chemistry that felt as ancient as family itself. When Oscar season arrived, history was made. Both were nominated for Academy Awards in the same year. For the same film, the first mother-daughter pair ever to achieve it. On the night of the ceremony, cameras caught Laura squeezing her mother's hand as their names were read aloud. Neither won, but they didn't need to. That shared nomination was their victory, proof that love, art, and legacy could exist in the same breath. From that point forward, Diane Ladd was no longer just an acclaimed actress. She had become Hollywood's matriarch, fierce, wise, unbreakable, and still unafraid to rebel against everything fake. She wasn't acting anymore. She was making history. Behind the awards and the applause was a woman who had already lived through storms most people couldn't imagine. Long before she was a Hollywood icon, Diane Ladd was a wife, a mother, and for a time a grieving parent. She met Bruce Dern at the Actors Studio in the 1950 seconds. Both were ambitious, hungry, and stubborn. They married in 1959, promising to conquer the film world together. For a while, they did. But fame is a hard thing to share. Their marriage was fiery, two artists in constant orbit, often colliding. Then came the heartbreak that would shape the rest of her life. Their first child, a baby boy, drowned in a tragic accident before his second birthday. In later interviews, Diane's voice always trembled when she spoke of it. I learned that pain doesn't end, it changes shape. You carry it, like a scar that becomes your strength. The marriage eventually ended in 1969, but the respect between them endured for more than 5 decades. Bruce Dern would later say, "Diane taught me how to act from the heart, not from ego." After the divorce, she poured everything she had into raising her daughter, Laura Dern. She taught her not just lines, but values, discipline, humility, courage. When Laura's career took off in the 1,980 seconds, Diane stood behind her, quietly proud, watching her child live the dream she had once fought for alone. Then, in 1973, life surprised her with love again. She met Robert Charles Hunter, a calm, grounded man who worked in corporate America, the opposite of Hollywood chaos. They married, and for 50 years, he was her anchor. Their home in Ojai became her sanctuary, filled with lemon trees, jazz records, and laughter. But even peace has an ending. On August 1st, 2025, Robert passed away at 77. Those who visited Diane afterwards said she carried her grief with quiet dignity. She still smiled, still cooked, still walked through her garden every morning. Because if life had taught her anything, it was this: love never truly leaves, it just changes rooms. In the winter of 2018, Diane Ladd's story took the kind of turn that sounds like fiction, except it was heartbreakingly real. Doctors told her she had idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a disease that slowly scars the lungs until they can no longer draw air. They gave her 6 months to live. 6 months for a woman whose life was built on breath, voice, and movement. She was 73 years old, but her response was not fear. It was defiance. "If this is my curtain call," she told her daughter, "then I'll make it a standing ovation." Laura Dern refused to accept the prognosis. She moved her mother to her home in Ojai, California, and began what they called the walking therapy. Every morning at sunrise, they walked slow, careful, measured steps through the garden paths and quiet roads. Diane wore a portable oxygen tank. Laura carried a notebook, recording their conversations, stories, regrets, confessions, and the laughter that refused to die. Something miraculous happened. Over months, Diane's lungs began to strengthen. Her doctors called it a medical anomaly. Diane called it love doing its job. Out of those walks came a book, a living document of survival titled Honey, Baby, Mine. A mother and daughter talk life, death, love, and banana pudding. Published in 2023, it became a New York Times bestseller, a symbol of how tenderness can heal what medicine cannot. Critics called it a love letter written in oxygen. Diane appeared on talk shows, frail but glowing, speaking softly about the gift of time. When someone tells you you're dying, you start to live differently. You breathe gratitude. Her illness, once a death sentence, had transformed into her greatest lesson. By 2024, she was walking unassisted, attending events, even giving lectures about resilience. To her fans, she wasn't just an actress anymore, she was a survivor, a living metaphor for endurance. She often ended her talks with one simple line: "Every breath is a gift. Take yours seriously." And those who heard her never forgot it. The morning of November 3rd, 2025, arrived softly in Ojai's sunlight spilling through lace curtains, the kind of light Diane always loved. The house was still. The garden was quiet. Only the faint sound of wind through lemon trees, and a daughter's voice reading aloud. Laura Dern sat by her mother's bedside, reading from their book, Honey, Baby, Mine. She later said those words had become a prayer between them. That morning, Diane smiled, her breathing shallow, but peaceful. She reached for Laura's hand and whispered, "I'm ready whenever God is." Those were her last words. She closed her eyes. Her heartbeat slowed, and at 8:23 a.m., Diane Ladd slipped away, not with struggle, but with grace. Laura stayed there for a long time, her fingers wrapped around her mother's. Then she went outside, sat on the porch, and watched the sun climb above the hills, the same hills her mother had walked for years to keep living. Later that day, she released a statement to the press. My mother passed peacefully, surrounded by love. Her light will never fade. Within hours, tributes poured in. Bruce Dern called her the fiercest heart I ever knew. David Lynch wrote, Diane could find humanity inside madness. She made art eternal. Fans gathered at the front gate, lighting candles, leaving white roses, playing the old songs from Rambling Rose. And as night fell over Ojai, the sky turned the color of old gold, a final curtain call for a woman who had always known how to exit beautifully. In the quiet days that followed her passing, Hollywood felt different. There were no scandals, no shock headlines, only gratitude, whispered through red carpets and studio lots, because Diane Ladd wasn't just another star who came and went. She was part of the foundation. Over a career that spanned 6 decades, she appeared in more than 120 films and television projects. She earned 3 Academy Award nominations, a Golden Globe, a Walk of Fame star, and countless honors from critics who struggled to put her power into words. But she never measured success in trophies. She once said, "You can't lie to the camera. It sees your soul." That belief that acting is truth, not performance, became her legacy. It's what she passed to her daughter, Laura Dern, who would go on to win her own Oscar in 2020 for Marriage Story. When Laura accepted that award, she dedicated it to my heroes, my legends, my parents, Diane Ladd and Bruce Dern. And the camera caught Diane in the audience, tears shining in her eyes. Now, their 2 stars rest side by side on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, mother and daughter, immortal in brass and concrete. To passers-by, they are just names. But to those who know, they mark a lineage, a story of art, courage, and love passed down like blood. After her death, Laura said, "My mother taught me that fame fades, but kindness doesn't." That's what she left behind. Her words spread across social media, shared by actors, writers, and everyday fans who had grown up watching Diane's films on VHS tapes and late-night television. People didn't just remember her performances, they remembered how she made them feel. Today, if you walk through Ojai at sunset, locals say the air still carries her warmth. The lemon trees she planted still bloom, and in the house she loved, a photograph of her younger self still smiles from the mantel, a reminder that the South never left her, and neither did Grace. In the end, Diane Ladd didn't just act. She lived her art fiercely, honestly, and with a faith that outlasted time. She was proof that beauty doesn't come from youth or fame or perfection. It comes from truth, and that is why, even now, long after her final curtain has fallen, her light still lingers. This has been gone, but iconic, honoring the legends who shaped our screens and our hearts. If Diane Ladd's story moved you, subscribe to the channel, share her memory, and keep her legacy alive, because every legend deserves to be remembered.